guys a couple of quick questions. If you had to have one food for the rest of your life, which is not really realistic, what food would that be? So I'll start with the ladies here on the left, and then we'll go around the table. Okay. Very kind, generous. Just try to skip. Okay. So we'll start with underneath right. That's right. Okay. That's right. So you would have one specific food for the rest of your life. What is that? So first of all,
এখন হচ্ছিল না এখন হচ্ছে
a little bit of white. Let's start from the top. So, he's going to introduce himself. Let's give a bit of quiet, please. Attention, please. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So, let's start from Andre.
So, my name is Arjun. I'm first year main student, accounting, probably that's one thing. And if I had the food I would want
For the rest of your life.
in the rest of my life, probably would be pizza.
Pizza. Any particular flavor?
My name is Avia. I'm a second-year university student. And if I had to pick one food to eat for the rest of my life, it would probably be rice, because I grew up eating it and I still haven't complained.
Okay. Nice.
My name is Fayad. I am in grade 11 and I would eat fried chicken.
Fried chicken for the rest of your life. Okay.
My name is Ryan. I'm in grade 11 and my food would be corn pizza.
Corn pizza. Very specific.
My name is Anas. I'm in grade 10. I'm about 5 foot 3. Doesn't make sense. But one food I'll have for the rest of my life is chicken curry.
Chicken curry for the rest of your life. Okay.
I'm in grade 10, and if food I would eat for the rest of my life would be potatoes.
So, like boiled potatoes. So, like any type of potatoes. Okay. Go on. Yep.
My name is Muhammad and I'm
Sorry, we didn't hear you.
Oh, my name is Muhammad. Not to be burger.
Burger.
Yeah, burger.
Any
Grade you
specific?
study?
What did you say?
Grade 9. Okay. Mohammed from grade 9 burgers. Okay. Next one, please.
My name is Ryan. I'm in grade 9, and food I'd eat for the rest of my life would be chicken curry.
Chicken curry.
My name is Noor. I'm in grade 9. My favorite food would be junior pizza.
My name is Sameem. I'm in grade 10 and I would have dal bhat for the rest of my life.
Dal and bhat. Okay. So if I were between dal and bhat, what would that be? Dal.
খেলতে লাগলে বলেন আমরা ওইটা
আপনারা ধার করলে আসো
মাত্র বললাম
Guys, you guys know that this is being recorded, right? It's being recorded, and we have audience in Regina and in Calgary. So we need to behave
original food. But yeah, so we don't want to be too loud. We want them to hear our answers, right? Okay.
My name is Grace. I'm in grade 9, and one food that I would have would be mocha pita.
Mocha pita.
My brother's
Okay. My name is Zaire. I'm in grade 8. The last food I would eat is noodles.
Noodles. Okay.
Good choice.
Cup noodles?
Okay.
Boiled
Chicken.
Next.
My name is Adib, and a food I will have, okay, some food I will have for the rest of the day is noodles.
Mangoes. And you're in which grade?
Great.
Okay, so they'll have to go to the separate. Okay, yeah, you'll be playing this stuff. Okay, so next.
My name is Steve. I'm in grade 10. My favorite food is fried chicken.
Fried chicken, so that's what you would have for the rest of your life if you had to have only one food. Okay.
My name is Rayad. I'm grade 11, and if I could only eat one thing, I would have deep hot.
Deep hot. So we have a lot of varieties in deep. What specific form of deep? Like
Whatever team there is,
whatever deep. So we have eggs.
my name is Untitled. I'm in grade 9, and I would eat mishmas and rice.
Mishmas and rice. Okay, something that we don't have a lot of.
My name is Rafat. I'm in grade 10, and I would have the lamb sauce. The lamb sauce.
A lamb sauce.
The lamb sauce.
The lamb sauce. So it's just the sauce.
Yeah.
It's not the lamb.
The lamb sauce.
It's just the sauce. So you would have sauce for the rest of your life.
If Gordon Ramsay can find it.
Oh, yeah.
If he can find it.
The back.
Self-introduction?
Yeah. So your name, your institution, and if you had one food for the rest of your lives, what would that be?
Okay, my name is Shibli Sharia. I'm a third year university student and grad McEwen. And the food I'll have beef curry.
Beef curry. Okay.
Good choice.
Good choice.
I'm Noshin, and I'm a grade 11 student. I would eat potatoes for the rest of my life too, because you can eat them as baked potatoes or French fries or hash browns.
Oh. Okay.
I'm Lucille. I'm grade 9, and I will have burgers for the rest of my life.
Which one? Chicken, burger, beef, goat? Beef. Okay. What's your favorite joint in Edmonton?
Probably, I don't know.
Okay, so you like them a lot. No favorite. Okay, fine. You can accept that. Yes, please.
My name is
Wadiba. Oh, sorry.
I'm grade 11, and I eat pizza for the rest of my life.
Pizza for the rest of your life. Interesting, we have pizza. But not for the rest of your life. For this program.
My name is Kaleda, and I'm in grade 9, and I will have rice.
Rice. Okay.
My name is Salman, I'm in grade 12, and I will have dinner poutine.
Doner poutine. Okay. Any favorite joints in Edmonton? Anyone? Oh, okay.
My name is Shaheen, I'm in grade 11, and I would have lasagna.
Lasagna. Okay. Lasagna. Okay. Maybe lasagna. Okay.
My name is Maya, I'm in grade 12, I have chicken pizza.
Chicken pizza. Okay. We have chicken pizza.
My name is Mia. I'm in third year university, and I have sushi.
Sushi. Okay. So there are a lot of varieties in sushi. Anything in specific? All sorts.
Yeah,
Assorted. Assorted.
My name is Tasnia. I'm in my second year, and I would have eggs.
Eggs. Okay. All sorts of eggs.
Yeah, exactly. Nutritious, filling.
Have you had duck eggs? Have you had duck eggs? No. Yes. Start.
I'm in my third year of university, and I would have chicken.
Chicken. So the only one different was lasagna.
My name is Mabika, I'm in grade 11, and I will eat pasta.
Pasta for the rest of your life. Perfect. Okay, so we know your favorite food. And we also know that you like pizza, which is why we have pizza. So probably in the next half an hour we'll be starting with the pizza. And now we have a group icebreaker sort of thing, just to see how you guys gel. And Simon will be taking over from here. So.
Okay, everyone, so we've had a lot of chats beside each other and talking and sitting down. So for this ice-breaking session, I need everyone in the middle of the room. Come on. Someone in the middle of the room is fine. I'm going to, yeah, everyone needs to get out of their seat though. Everyone needs to be in the middle of the room. Come on, everyone.
My name is Joe Bob. My name is
Come on. You guys need to hurry up a little more.
My name is Joffrey.
Girls, I'm waiting. I'm trying to stand. You guys have to listen to me. Okay, everyone? Let's get on with this game. Let me explain how we play it, okay? Okay, listen everyone. Everyone listen please. Okay. For this game, I'm going to give you two options and I'll point like option A, go this side, option B, go this side. So we'll know what you guys are like, we'll know a little bit more what you guys want, like, etc. So I'm gonna give the options now. Okay, so first option, apples this side, bananas this side. Come on, move. Let's see who likes apples and who likes bananas. No, you have to choose one. Awesome. So we know these ones like apples, crunchy. Next option. Okay, let's see who likes Mars versus Snickers.
Oh, good.
Okay, we have all the Snickers here. More Snickers! Okay, so that's my favorite. For sure. Okay, for the next one. This is a Bengali one. Chal versus Mishti. Chal, Mishti. So spicy and sweet. Oh, everyone loves chal. Yeah, way to go, me too. Alright, okay, for the next option. Nature versus city. Nature, city.
I like my
City? Wow, everyone loves the city. I like the nature too. Okay. Okay, way to go, city. You guys are the favorite in this group.
No judgment.
Next option, no judgment. Next option, how about some cartoon characters? Okay, so for this one, this side, Batman. This side, Superman. What did Superman do?
You guys don't watch the
Is it the new Batman? Why do you like Batman so much?
I was on the Superman side. No true peer pressure.
Why do you guys like Batman so much?
because he has gadgets, that's why. Because he's real.
Alright, next, great. This is awesome. Okay, I'll move on. This is about games. So this side, indoor games. This side, outdoor games.
Oh yeah.
What do you guys like?
Roblox.
What do you cook? Cooking shows. Okay, great, awesome. So I want to thank everyone. This is awesome. We got to know each other very well. I think there's some clear majorities in some of the priorities or likes. So everyone, please have a seat and we'll move on to the next session. Thank you.
I can buy a house with my robot. I'm not even joking that a lot of robots exist when I was a kid.
Come on, guys, have a seat. Settle down, settle down. The whole purpose of this program, of this icebreaker, was to make sure you guys don't fall asleep. So that's moving around. And we're not really interested in what you like, what you want, something. So, yeah. So before we start the next session, I need a quick head count. Let's start from the lady. So you go with one and we'll just... Okay. 76. Okay. So next up is our workshop. So our workshop is challenges of being a Muslim. So I'm assuming, of course, I'm more or less sure that we're all Muslim youth. So every day when you go to school, to university, you go out, you face a bit of challenge, right? Can I please? Just a bit. Okay. So when you face challenges, so our whole target is to find out what sort of challenges you face, and at the end of your challenges, please write down what sort of solution you would propose for those challenges. Don't say homework is a challenge. No, homework is not a challenge for Muslim youth. Homework is a challenge for every other youth. So it can be homework, it can be going to school early in the morning. That's not a challenge for Muslim youth, it's for every other. So we need you to divide into people of 7, right? So we'll give you a chart and we'll give you a marker. Sit around in groups. Use this space if you like. For the next 15 and 20 minutes, we'll do that. You want to... These groups are just how they sit down. Okay, it's okay, right? So every 7, 8 person will start a new group. I'll give you the charts right now. While I distribute 6, 7. Okay, so while I give out those charts, make sure you discuss, and I'll give you the charts and the markers. At the end of this show, around next 10-20 minutes, each group has to come up and present their ideas on what they think the challenges are of being a Muslim youth, okay? So I'll give you the charts.
To wake you up and pray together. The second one is praying at school. Start a club for Muslims. And then the third one is peer pressure into around activities, watching some motivation videos. And then the fourth one is praying time. So set alarm, ask parents for a reminder. The last one is finding halal food. So search for blogs on social media for halal restaurants. That is what we have.
Well, we have the song.
So we're moving on to the next group. Thank you very much, first group, for sharing your ideas. Excellent, excellent ideas. Okay, so I mean, like, challenges you're facing. We're moving on to the next group, and this is Anna.
Okay, some of the challenges that the group discussed is reading prayer time. Solutions to that could be like excuse yourself from whatever you're doing. If you're at school, you know, let the teacher know that this time I can't be here. Religious purposes, they technically can't say no. As they said, peer pressure, you have the courage to say no. Eating habits.
Give an example of peer pressure.
Saying, obviously, it's like it's the prayer times, and your friends are like, you want to go to the mall, you know, you gotta have the courage to say no to that. And yeah. Next one would be like eating habits, especially here where it's like, it's not like where everything has pork and gelatin in it. You should check the ingredient list before eating anything. And if you don't, if there's no ingredient list, just avoid it altogether. Yeah. Ramadan, really hard around this time, like here. Avoid food altogether, or focus on the end goal, is like purification, and yeah, that's all I know.
So next group.
So this is no.
The first problem that we as Muslims face is peer pressure. So to solve peer pressure, just hang out with good people, like such as Muslims. Next, another problem that we have is finding a room to pray in at school. So like if you can't find a prayer room in school to like do salah, just get a group of Muslims and then just like a large group and tell you.
It's a fun challenge, I guess.
Tell your teacher that you need to do your prayers so that they can open up a room. Another thing that a problem that we face is fasting. So there's a lot of problems that occur when we're fasting in Ramadan, especially at school when a lot of non-Muslims are eating. So in order to combat this, just request your teacher to be exempt during lunchtime so that you don't have to watch others eat. And for classes such as physical education, just request to skip them. Yeah, that's it.
Good job.
Okay, so we have praying at school, create a prayer club at school. Second one is finding halal food. Eat only vegetables, become a vegan and start drinking almond milk. Third one is not being able to say astaghfirullah when your science teacher talks about her boyfriend. And so the third one is not being able to say astaghfirullah when your science teacher talks about her boyfriend. When we're in class doing homework, we don't really want to do homework. And the way to combat this is just to say astaghfirullah anyway. Fourth is discrimination, and we can get through this with ignoring it or through preaching and teaching. Fifth one is staying up late at night for Isha prayer. We can get through this by praying early or just skipping class.
Great, that was awesome. And moving on to this group, who will present from here?
Guys, let's settle down. We have people from other cities, they want to hear what you're saying as well. So let's settle down, okay?
Right. So for us, at least from my personal experience, I felt praying Jummah on a Friday when you have final exams going on is a big challenge. But that is nothing compared to the second one that I came up with, was to every now and then justify for the extremist things that happen in the Middle East and all around the world in the name of my religion, in the name of our religion. And I'm pretty sure, girls are here, my sister had to hear, a white guy came up to her one time and told her, so what you got there, Muslim? You got a bomb in there? Why do you have to cover your head? So now you have to answer this question. It is unfortunate, but we have to answer these questions, and for us to actually be able to answer these questions, we need to have the knowledge. I know it's hard, it's not really very interesting, we already got our courses, 6 courses sometimes, in an engineering program you have to take these courses, and that itself is a struggle, but we don't have a choice, everyone needs to be Zakir Naik. Every now and then we are questioned, what is Allah? When did Allah begin? Astaghfirullah. These questions don't pop up into our minds, but every now and then when I get into a conversation when I'm talking about scientific facts, and then they come up to me and say that, so you're a religious person, you grow a beard, who are you to talk about science? So these drastic questions are questions that I'm having to answer, and the only way, it's not that there is any way we can avoid it, we should embrace it, because that is, I feel it's a blessing that Allah has given us, that we are having to answer these questions, because if we do, we put in that effort, one day we will be rewarded, inshallah. But for that to happen is that we need to put in that effort. We need to put in that, we watch stuff on YouTube every now and then. Just let's listen to Nolan Ali Khan. He's a pretty jolly guy, we can listen to him for 5 minutes and you get to know a lot of information. So not every time we will have the opportunity to go into Hadith and Sirah and study all of that, but every now and then we lend our ears to these knowledgeable people that can go a long way. And it's just that there is no avoiding this fact that we are being treated unjustly. No, we are not. This is the way we are being tested. There is no justice question raised to tests. We are tested and we need to ace our tests. And for that, we need to put in that effort. And the last one, of course, someone already put it up, having to eat halal food. But I feel when it comes to halal food, we need to do a lot of other things. I've seen Muslims in this country who emphasize on eating halal. They would rather die out of food rather than not eat halal. but they would go in nightclubs, they would drink and they'll party and everything. But when it comes to food, bro, oh no, bro, you gotta eat halal, bro. Bro, that doesn't matter. It's a Friday, we're going to party, but bro, is that chicken halal? No one cares about the alcohol, but is that chicken halal? So of course, I'm not trying to demean the fact that we need to eat halal, but we need to set our priorities straight. So I feel these are challenges like that puts us in a critical situation. Yeah. Thank you.
I thought that was great. You brought up very new challenges. And inshallah, we want to hear more from you after inshallah. Okay, so moving on to the next group. The girls. Settle down, guys. Let's listen.
So some technical problems we came up with were praying your 5 prayers while you're in school or at work, wearing halal clothes and wearing the hijab, resisting to eat haram. But then there's also assimilation in a non-Muslim country, being a minority in a non-Muslim country, racism, and having to consider if you're being discriminated against because of your religion, and also bullying and conflicting expectations from your Muslim family and from your non-Muslim friends and peers. And also alcohol, drugs, and the legalization of weed.
Let's move on. And can you also show us your poster? It looks really nice. Just hold it up. Hold it up. Okay, it's not bad. That's not bad. Nice. Okay. So introduce yourself.
Okay. My name is Lisa, and these are the few things.
Let's hear it. Let's all hear it.
So the first thing we found hard for Muslims was the lack of exposure, because we usually grow up in like safe households. We're usually going to Islamic schools. So when we go out to places like university, we don't exactly experience the same things that we've experienced in our safe households. We have the style of dressing versus society, and it's just hard for us Muslims to try to not assimilate ourselves in countries that don't exactly wear the same clothing as us. Feeling the need to conform to social norms, like once again, the drugs, the alcohol, uneducating ourselves about other cultures and religions. This goes vice versa. People not being educated about our religion and us not being educated about others. And racism within our community and outside of our community. And it just teaches us to be open-minded.
Nice. Okay. And this will be our final group. So here, go on.
So we mentioned a lot of the same problems of finding a place and time to pray, finding places to make wudu, eating halal outside, and like dressing modestly. So we also brought up like being halal during networking events. So a lot of us in this group are in university right now, and a lot of our organizations or our clubs will have networking events that happen in bars or happen where everyone sits down, they have alcohol, and then they talk. And to be excluded in that environment or just being uncomfortable surrounded by like, people who are intoxicated, like that is a struggle. So we mentioned that to solve that is just being very clear about the fact that you don't drink and understanding and like knowing your limits and knowing that if you choose, like you can choose to not go, and if you choose to go, just know not to drink. Yeah. And then I guess the last one we said is finding a good life partner in Canada, or like finding like a good Muslim husband in the future. And our solution right now is die single. So. So yeah.
So you'd rather die single?
Yeah.
You'd rather die single.
Yeah. So that's about it.
Okay. Perfect. We have here. So now we're going to break. Thank you for your challenges. They were all really interesting, and I'd love to hear more about this. We have here Uncle Alami here. Can I just ask you to say just 5 minutes about what you think their challenges are and what they're about to do. In the meantime, we'll just distribute the pizza because pizza's here, they're getting cold, and we'll hear Uncle Ahami for 5 minutes. So Uncle Ahami has been with us for the last program. He was with you. I'm sure he doesn't need introduction. So they were talking about challenges. If you can help us. And who this is the pizza.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مبارك. MashaAllah, you guys are very smart youth. I can tell you that when I listen to your concern and listen to your how you guys put things together and the format, it's amazing. MashaAllah, you guys are brilliant. You're very smart. Yeah, challenges are there all the time, but if you don't have let me see some brothers want to challenges are there all the time. If you don't have a strategic solution, then you're gonna fall in those cracks. And one of the things I love is talk. Sometimes we mess up our priorities. We are very keen about halal food, but hanging around with type of people that are not fitting with our religious values. So there is. We have to set up our priorities. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us as a Muslim. And when we have become Muslim, then we have some responsibilities that we have to follow. And those responsibilities is, I guess the brother mentioned very well, those responsibilities is number one, you have to know your religion. You have to know your religion. At least we are not going to be, as brother mentioned, that we are not, all of us going to be as Dr. Zakir Naik, but at least we should know what is right and what is wrong. Otherwise, we're going to be totally misguided. Challenges are there, even the time of Prophet ﷺ.
Okay, extra.
Even the time of companion of Rasulullah ﷺ, there were challenges. There were many challenges. Like you compare our challenges to compare their challenges, our challenges are really small. Very small. Listen to that. Your beloved Prophet, my beloved Prophet, he was praying Salah, he's praying Namaz, he's praying, putting his face in sujood to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there is a guy, he's putting garbage in the top of his head. This has happened to you?
So that they can view.
Is that good, sister? So think about it. The Prophet ﷺ is not harming anybody. He's not telling anything to anybody. He's just praying quietly and peacefully. He's putting his head in the sujood to Allah Azza wa Jal, to his Lord, to his Creator. And he's putting garbage in the top of his head. And he continues salah. And his daughter, Fatima, comes and he's removing all those impurities, those garbages from his head. And he said to the people, Fatima said, why are you guys bothering this man? He doesn't do anything to you. He doesn't harm you, doesn't hurt you. He's just worshipping Allah Azza wa Jal. He's just putting his head to worship Allah. And nothing wrong. It doesn't do anything wrong to you. So, have you faced this kind of problem? Have you had this kind of challenge? Have you had the challenge that drive people, the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Quraysh, people of the Quraysh drove Prophet ﷺ from his house, from his beloved land. And he was living in the mountain, in the desert, with no food, with no water. Do we have those challenges? Wallahi, I'm telling you, if we work a little bit to know our deen, our religion, and be respectful, knowledgeable, and presentable, we can avoid those challenges. I know you guys eating, you have delicious from Mona Pizza. It's really tasty, it smells really good. So enjoy your evening, Jazakumullah khair. There's a lot of things we can say about challenges, but that one solution I want to provide you is have tawakkul to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Have trust Allah dearly, like seriously trust Allah, and inshallah, whatever Allah asks you to do it. Something Allah said, don't do it, and focus on solution. Don't let too many negatives come to your mind, because that's going to reduce your energy, and also we're going to be a certain type of negative, always thinking of negative. But if you focus on positive things that we have in this country, inshallah, your challenges are going to be slowly reduced. Jazakumullah khair. Enjoy.
So we have one of our main speakers here, alhamdulillah, Brother Mahdi Kaskas. He's a psychologist, and he's a psychologist by profession, and I'm sure he'll be able to do this himself. After his session, we'll also have question and answers. So if you have questions and answers, please keep them in your mind, and I'm sure you give us enough time to discuss questions and answers, inshallah. Inshallah.
Did you just steal my phone?
Failed.
See, now you know the issues. So without further ado, Brother Mahdi Kaskas.
So what, am I the entertainment while you guys eat? Why don't I give you 5 minutes to finish eating, and then because the problem is the topic that I'm going to talk about is going to kill your appetite. I'm talking about something that's so deep and so dark, something that can kill people without lifting a finger. So why don't you finish eating, enjoy the last bit of hope that's in the air before we suck it out of the room. Okay. We're going to talk about hopelessness, but like Uncle Alami said, we're going to reshift our focus to talking about hope after. Alright? So eat, enjoy, and we'll be back with you in, let's say, 2 minutes. Sayyidina Muhammad, Ashraf al-Mursaleen, amma ba'd. My uncle Alami here ended his, what I'm sure was an amazing, inspiring talk with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam being under a load of garbage. This is the best man that's ever walked this earth. Do you think he was ever sad? Was the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam ever sad? Did he ever feel forsaken? Alienated? Doomed? Helpless? Captive? Powerless? Oppressed? Limited? Some of those things, yes, but not all of them. In fact, those are 9 categories of hopelessness. But there's a difference between despair and distress. Many of you, if I start talking about hopelessness, I'll get a bunch of nods. If it's not physically, it's emotional. We've all had dark days. Some of you are probably thinking about something that happened not too long ago. You feel so guilty, feel like a failure. Constantly going back to that negative moment. Perhaps your self-esteem is suffering. Maybe you're heartbroken. Maybe you feel like you don't really belong. My conclusion from today, in case I lose some of you in the process, is hope is a choice. Choose hope. Most of the hopelessness that we experience is a product of our own doing. I'm not going to be talking today about imposed oppressions and limitations. That's not what I'm talking about. Social justice is a very important thing. There is absolutely, without a doubt, systemic discrimination, and most of you are the target, especially our sisters wearing hijab. The brothers, they can pass. They might just think you're, an exchange student from somewhere. But you, mashallah, I wrote a book chapter called Radical Resiliency, an introduction to Islamophobia and the new Canadian Muslim reality. And I highlighted the power that Muslim women have. And it's not one of those things where I'm just saying, oh, mashallah, sisters, you're awesome. Just please go in the corner and don't talk while the brothers talk. That's not what this is. You have an immense amount of power. Because despite all the hopelessness that you can get sucked into, you choose to respond differently. How many of you are going to university soon? All right.
What about the ones who are in university?
Who's in university? All right. Let me guess. Keep your hand up if you're in engineering. Oh, what? You're not all in engineering? MashaAllah. What are your faculties? Please say psychology. Please say psychology.
Sciences, psych minor.
Psych major.
Psych minor.
There's no such thing as a psych minor. What is that? Like, I kind of want to understand humans, maybe just the left arm. Okay. Fair enough. Good. Fair enough. Often, when people go to university, it's very easy to understand the hard sciences. It's the social sciences, the liberal arts, the fine arts that people tend to ignore, despite the power that those arts have. Because understanding humans is more perhaps an art than it is a science. Can somebody close that door? Yes. They scientifically close that door. Or phenomenologically close the door. That's fine too. The experience of closing the door. Anyways. Thank you very much. Jazakallah khair. So, those of you that have studied physics, show of hands. All right. What is Newton's first law?
Body stays in motion until an opposing force acts on it.
An object in motion will remain in motion unless something acts upon it of equal or greater force, right? Okay. Have you ever been really, really angry? I mean enraged? Lost your cool? What brought you back? It had to be an equal or more powerful force, correct? So let's apply the same law to an emotional domain or a psychological domain. Have you ever felt like such a failure? So hopeless? What brought you back? Have you ever felt like a bad Muslim? What brought you back? Have you ever felt unloved, uncared for, neglected, abused, harassed, bullied? What brought you back from that? An equal or greater force. Let me tell you a few stories about some of the prophets that we know so well. And I want you to write off the first thought in your mind. I want you to decide, happy or sad? Musa alayhi salam. Yell it out, happy or sad? Yusuf alayhi salam. Adam alayhi salam. Yaqub alayhi salam. Ayyub alayhi salam. Yunus alayhi salam. Nuh alayhi salam. Where you choose to focus your attention is where you're going to go. Okay? If you focus your attention on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the hope in Allah, you will orient yourself to be more positive. Okay? These are the conclusions of today, because we don't have much time, and I don't want to end in the middle of giving the conclusions. We only have about 12 minutes, I think. Nuh was ridiculed for how many years? Alone. His own wife betrayed him. His own son was the worst person perhaps on earth at the time. See, a lot of people sit there saying, oh yeah, see, that's why all the shuyukh's kids are so bad. And then the shuyukh come back and say, what am I going to do? Nuh alayhi salam, I'm not better than he is. A lot of times it has a lot to do with the mother. The way the child is raised. Has to do with the environment. Has to do with their friends. So many things impact people's behaviors. It's not just hope. It's also action. Ilm, amal, amal. Ilm, amal, amal. Knowledge, action, hope. Whatever order you choose to put those three in, be my guest. But those three will lead to a more happy life. Adam alayhi salam. Happy or sad? In Jannah, he was lonely. When he disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it was the worst day of his life. Remember, when we talk about psychology, it is absolutely important to recognize that different fields have different views of human nature. So if the nature of humans is evil, then the whole purpose will be to control the human being so that that evil doesn't come out. But if the nature of human beings is to be active, is to be good, is to want to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then facilitating human nature is what we need to be doing. See how two totally different interventions would occur if you believed one person was evil and one person was good? So the way we view humans, human nature, is essential to understanding any form of psychology, not just Islamic psychology. And human nature is everything Adam alayhi salam did. And Adam was lonely. Human nature. Adam forgot. Human nature. Adam made a mistake. Human nature. Adam turned back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Human nature. Adam lived on this earth. Human nature. Adam died on this earth. Human nature. Nuh alayhi salam, despite all the ridicule, he never lost hope. Yunus alayhi salam. You know the story of Yunus and the whale? Show of hands, who knows that story? Good. So Yunus alayhi salam left his people. He left them. He got angry, frustrated. Swallowed by a whale. And thrown in the well. Now, imagine this picture. The first time he gets to go out with his brothers. He's so excited, so happy. You know, like, you ever have that excitement, you just can't wait to go somewhere? Okay. And finally they take him out. And as the story goes on, they take off his shirt. They're in the middle of the desert. And they start placing him into the well, and perhaps at this moment he still thinks they're playing with him, and he's laughing. And then it's not funny anymore. It's not fun anymore. He cries out to them, "I'll die in here." Nothing. You know what they say to him? "Let your dad's love help you now." And then he's saved. But not by smart people. He's saved by people who were accepted nothing, accepted worthless. They were worthless. They sold him into slavery. Could you imagine if they had just an ounce of humanity in them? If they raised Yusuf alayhi salam? Now of course, qada qadar, it's meant to be is meant to be, but just imagine with me for a moment. They had the opportunity to change the course of history, but they didn't. They had the opportunity to be the ansar of a prophet, but they didn't. Just like you have an opportunity. You can do great things. You have to overcome your hopelessness though. You have to overcome your pain. Yusuf gets saved again, but then he's abused by his foster mother. And then thrown into jail. And while he's in jail, he has a proposition. Yusuf, the king, is having this dream. And Yusuf can interpret dreams, and he knows what it means. He knows the answer. He knows that if he gives them the answer, he can save humanity. What did he do? What would you do? You know the superheroes that we so desperately wish were alive? Anybody a Batman fan? Yeah? No, seriously, it's okay, it's fine. Do you remember the first Batman? Now, what's Batman's only rule? No killing, right? At the end of that movie, the first one, what does he say? When right before Ra's al Ghul dies. Which, by the way, Ras al Ghul is an Arabic word for the head of the beast, right? Anyways, just so you know. I think it refers to the devil, I don't know. What does he say? Anyone? Come on. They're like, what are you talking about? Batman 1? Buddy, it's been rebooted 6 times. What's wrong with you? He says, I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you. Fair enough? Yusuf alayhi salam could have said the same thing, and nobody would have blamed him. Would you? Hurt people, right? People that are hurt and abused tend to abuse and hurt others. He wasn't hurting anybody. He didn't have to do anything. But what was it that allowed Yusuf alayhi salam to go through 15, 20 years of pain, alienation, oppression? In that moment, he made a choice. An object in motion will remain in motion unless what? An equal or greater force acts upon it. And his love and connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a greater force. Musa alayhi salam, crying under the tree. He's got nothing. He's a refugee. He's a fugitive. The Pharaoh was after him. And yet still, he gets up and does something about it. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, abused by his people, goes to Ta'if, stoned by little kids, bleeding, sits under the tree, has angels come to him. What does the angel say? You know the story, right? If you don't know these stories, I beg of you, during this break, pick up any Islamic book on the stories of the prophets or the life of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and read. Or better yet, since you're probably not readers, watch YouTube videos on it. There's tons of great stuff out there. If you're into cartoons, the cartoons are a little slow, right? Please don't watch the Disney version of Moses and think, yes, that's an accurate depiction. Please don't. The angel says, I will destroy them. Bayn al-Akhshabayn. I will take this mountain and bring them together, and Ta'if will not exist. And then, what could Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam have done? He could have strolled back into Mecca saying, I destroyed Ta'if for you guys, now do you believe? But he didn't. Was he happy or sad in that moment? He was begging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, إِلَى مَنْ تَكِلَنِي إِلَى عَدُوٍ يَتَجَهَّمُنِي أَمْ إِلَى قَرِيبٍ مَلَّكْتَهُ أَمْرِي. Who will you leave me to? To an enemy? To these people? And then he says the most powerful words that you can ever use. إِلَّمْ يَكُنْ. If it's not anger against me from you, فَلَا أُبَالِي. If you're not angry with me, Allah, then I'm okay. An object in motion will remain in motion. That force to respond to that extreme distress is unmatchable. It's stronger than any therapy. That's not to say that if you have basic physiological needs that dua alone is okay. You have to eat, you have to drink, go to the doctor, get help. Same thing with emotional and psychological issues. Get help. Get your psychological first aid, but recognize that at the essence of it all, spirituality can amplify any intervention. I say that as a professional, I say that as an academic, as a researcher, but I'm nobody. أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ. Is it not with the remembrance of Allah that the hearts find tranquility? And usually, where is that pain? You only get a headache after you stayed at home for 3 days, but it's your heart that hurts. Ibrahim alayhi salam, probably not older than many of you. And he's tied up. Remember, he's already been kicked out of the house by his dad, shunned by the whole community, and now they build a fire so large that they can't just throw him into it. They need to catapult him into it. And nobody says a thing. Nobody stands up for him. Many people were probably hopeless and oppressed themselves. What were they supposed to do? I mean, how do you think Ibrahim Islam's mom felt? Fine, his dad is a whatever he was. But his mom, they're gonna burn her son. Now here he is, loved and cared for by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more than any other human being can love another human being. And he's tied up. They didn't even need to tie him up. You're catapulting the guy into fire. You need to tie his hands too. And the journey begins. He's launched into the air. Now, how long does it take to project a human being into the air and onto the ground? But perhaps time stopped in that moment. And the first angel comes to Ibrahim alayhi salam while he's in the air. And says, "Ya Ibrahim, I'm the angel of the wind. Just say the word, and I'll blow the wind back on them. Burn them all." I would have took that deal. I would have took it in a heartbeat. Are you kidding me? I would say, yes, burn them and make sure they get, and put me down safely, please. I would have took it, no doubt. He says, "I'm not in need of you." Next angel comes. "I'm the angel of the rain. I'll put out the fire." And I'm kind of hoping the angel said, "And I'll drown them too." Because I wanted them to die. I wanted them to be punished. I was so angry for Ibrahim alayhi salam, even though I know the end of the story. It's like a movie where you still think it's going to change, but it doesn't. It just plays on and on. Sort of like how sometimes when we start thinking about those negative experiences, when we think about our future, we think that it will not change. We think it's written that our lives will be miserable. That's despair. That's haram. Anything can change. Even your halal. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would make dua. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا شر ما قضيت. Right? Protect us from, change any evil that was going to happen to us, change it. And when you make dua, if it's not answered in this life and it's preserved up till the day of judgment, you're better off. Or a third option happens. You're making the dua, it's going up, the distress or calamity is coming down, and they wipe each other out. You always have that means. You always have that dua. You always have that connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If He wants good for you, He will allow you to use it. Sort of like right now, in your mind, you want to make dua, but you're hesitating. Why? Make dua in your mind. Keep making it. If this is the first time your heart's ever softened towards Islam, make dua that it keeps going. But back to Ibrahim in the middle of the air. The third angel comes. Ya Ibrahim, I am Jibreel. Your Lord has sent me. Just command me. What do you want? What do you need? He said, Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakeel. Allah is enough for me. And Allah is the best of those to depend on. An object in motion will remain in motion until what? Some powerful force comes against it. That fear that Ibrahim must have felt was challenged by his love and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just like Uncle Adam said, put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the powerful force that will challenge anything. It will change things. Allah made the command, Ya nar, kuni bardan wa salaman ala Ibrahim. O fire, be cool and a means of safety for Ibrahim. The fall itself should have killed him, but it didn't. The fire protected him. Allah changed nature because of one little boy who loved him so much. What do you think he'll do for you? Anything you ask him. Just choose hope. Choose to be hopeful. Don't choose to be despairing. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to strengthen our faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put us on a track to stay hopeful and to derive hope from all the great things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put right in front of us. قولوا قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم جزاكم الله خير. Thank you. Let's go pray. Pray hard, and we'll come back and I'll answer any questions you have.
Pieces of paper. If anyone wants to ask a question, I'll give them to you and you write your question and then give it to me and I'll hit it to the other multitaskers. In the meantime, we do have a couple of questions, so without further ado, let's start with the question.
Okay, so first of all the questions you guys asked either require therapy or an imam, because you either asked about theology, and this is psychology, right? And interventions and stuff like that. Usually there's no quick fix, there's no one size fits all. Every person's unique basic psychological needs may be the same, but the way they're satisfied are different. So unfortunately, a lot of times I feel bad for imams and shuyukhs that get serious questions and they actually answer them. And the moment I hear the question, I'm like, oh, the imam's in trouble. Because no matter how he answers, it's going to go wrong for somebody. So thank you for submitting the questions. You submitted the questions more as a way for me to recognize what's going on in your minds and to prepare something for that. Okay? So I apologize if your question is not directly answered. I'd be happy to answer any other questions you guys ask, but just know, I'll give you the exact same answer if you ask me a theological question. Questions? None? So let me ask questions then.
Question.
Does anybody have questions actually? I'm just joking. Nope? What schools do you go to?
U of A.
U of A, okay. Who's in high school? What school do you go to? Yeah? Is there a khutbah there?
Sorry?
Raise your hands. Is there a Jum'ah khutbah at your school? Yes? Wow. Where do you go? Okay, put your hands down if it's Islamic capital. Yeah? Vernon what?
Hartford.
And who gives the khutbahs?
Kids from our grade.
Please write your name down and your email address. I'm going to contact you later. So, do you know the kids from your grade?
Yeah, they're my friends.
They're your friends? Okay, tell them tonight, take this number down. Nobody else call this number. 403-862.
Hold on, 403, yeah.
Actually, you know what? Yeah, okay, fine. 862-1122. Okay? Tell them exactly as I'm saying. Tell them that we now have a volunteer khatib program. We're going to support them 100%. We got their back 100%. That's my personal cell number should they ever need anything khutbah related. Okay? Good? Now, that's the level of support I give to people who want to give back to the community. Those that need help, Well, they end up paying $190 for that help. That's how much I charge, okay? So I'm not trying to say that as anything. I want you to know that I honestly believe that things come easy after you volunteer 10,000 hours. You know the Maxwell thing about being an expert after 10,000 hours? Yeah, sure. Same thing, concept. But Allah makes things easy for you after you volunteer 10,000 hours. So get on that volunteer track. Who are your volunteers? Show of hands. Okay, what do you do? Yeah. Nice. You're in cadets? Very cool. Anybody else volunteer? Okay, those of you that don't volunteer, why don't you? 54% of Canadians don't volunteer because nobody asked. 9% of Canadians don't volunteer because they had a bad experience. Another 24% don't volunteer because they said, I've done enough. Okay? So, which category do you fall under? Because volunteering should, if it's done right, motivate you to feel so good about it that you just love doing it. Okay? If you're doing it for the right reasons. Life follows that same sunnah. If your goals are for the sake of Allah, things will be easy. You will be oriented towards positive things. But if you want fame, money, fortune, the promise of reward, the avoidance of punishment, then no matter what happens, you're not going to be happy. All right? Any other questions?
Can I ask a
Yeah.
Since you're in the field of psychology and you're dealing with, I'm sure you have a lot of Muslim clients too.
Yeah.
What do you think is very burning or something that you see very often and really worries you or something like that?
Well, what worries me is not the big issues, because big issues happen due to trauma, due to years of abuse, exposure to negativity, all that stuff. What bothers me is the lack of people's awareness of basic psycho-spiritual first aid. Sometimes I'm baffled that people really, really seriously don't know what to do when their friend says they want to commit suicide. When their friend, and you guys are all in high school and junior high and university, so this is not like one of those, oh no, don't talk about suicide or else everybody's going to just kill themselves. It doesn't work that way. Talking about it doesn't make it happen. Not talking about it makes people hide, and then eventually if it doesn't come out one way, it comes out another. Because suicide is a counterproductive solution to a problem. But whenever somebody's mindset is that it's the only solution, then it's a problem, right? And for those of you who don't know what I'm saying, Thanos. Now, what was, what's this? Snap his fingers and half of the population is gone. Why? So that he can save the other half, right? Right? So why didn't he snap it and double the food source? Or triple it? Or not make people hungry? It's his callousness. He put in his mind that that is the only solution and that's it. That's what makes him evil. It's his callousness. Otherwise, a lot of people will be like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, wow, you start rooting for the guy. You're like, thank God he didn't take off his head. But again, the idea is, this is what gets people into trouble, when they have zero alternatives to their problem. How many of our brothers and sisters engaged in suicide by ISIS? They are severely depressed. They want to die. They just can't do it themselves. So they join ISIS. One theory. Suicide by cop in the United States is very common. People want to die. And they don't want to do it themselves. And there's nobody to help them. There's nobody to smile in their face. They feel so lonely and hopeless. And it's that hopelessness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says is haram. It's not the sadness, it's not the symptoms, it's the point you get to where you feel there's absolutely no more hope. And you know the beautiful thing, what I love as a psychologist, is that in and of itself is the strongest protective factor to a lot of Muslims from committing suicide. So, not to get dark on you or anything, but yes, basic psychological injuries like failure, like rejection, like isolation, all these things can lead to serious problems if they're not healed. Answer your question? All right. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you for coming. So those of you, oh right, you were the only school. What other schools have khutbah? Yeah? Friday for prayer, yeah. What school? Oh, Emi Lazard, yeah, we got Emi Lazard. Yeah, we're all there. Any other schools? Okay, yes. Harry, is there khutbah? Who gives it? Can you get the name of the student and have them call me? By the end of tonight?
Oh no.
By the end of tomorrow?
I have one to break. You'll be like a solid one.
No, I respect that. Be like, what's that guy's name? Yeah, the guy that gives the khutbah. Be like, why? The sheikh wants his name. I look so terrible. Anybody else going to Harry Inley? Okay, can you get in touch with somebody? We can get in touch with somebody. We can get in touch with somebody. We can get in touch with them. Okay, tell your mom or dad to call his mom or his dad and say, I need his help. You don't go to the Jummah, do you? No, you just called me out. That's why I didn't raise my hand to begin with. It's okay, it's not fun on you anyway. But yeah, if you could try. You're not going to do it, are you? I'll try. Any other schools? No? Okay, what about the schools that don't have Jummah khutbah in your school? What do you do on Friday prayer? Do you skip? You should. It's Friday prayer. It's fun on you. Now let's see what your parents say. Now see if they invite me back again. If you don't have Friday prayer at your school, I'm telling you right now, it is one of the most powerful sources to connect students together. So also make sure that you're on the right track in your deen, but in your school as well. Where else are you going to get past exams from? The 11th graders and the 12th graders are not going to talk to you just because you're Muslim. But if you're in Jummah, they will support you. It's a different life. Even in jail, the people that pray Jummah together respect each other because of Jummah. It's a powerful force. Those of you that are interested in moving forward on it and are serious about it, let me know. I will give you my personal cell, if and only if you are very committed and serious about that initiative. Okay? Too bad, girls. I'm just joking. No, I'm joking. But the idea is developing khutbahs, organizing khutbahs. The only part that the guys are doing is the deliverance. Who do you think writes the president's speeches? It's not the president. Trudeau doesn't write his own speeches. Every great leader has a speechwriter. So what we're also working on is having the sisters work on developing the khutbahs. All right, Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This was great. Can I mic drop? You guys were awesome, mashallah. Very respectful. I appreciate it.
I know, everyone's so excited. Guys. Assalamu alaikum. Guys, can I get your attention? I know everyone's super excited that the first song finished and you guys can just chat it up. But I think we're running behind time, so I gotta start right away. I'd love to give you guys 10 minutes, but I can't. I'm really sorry. Okay, awesome. So my name is, does anyone know my name? Sorry? No, you guys don't know my name. That's alright. So my name is Faraz Ahmed, alright? I grew up in Edmonton. I went to, who went to A&E here? There's one sister. Who else is going to A&E here? 2, 3. So I actually went to her A&E in the south side. Graduated from there.
Then went to university and got married. I have 3 kids. That's my life in a nutshell. So there's not much to it. But before we get started, and before, by the time they pull up my presentation, so I gotta buy some time. Well, I'm gonna get you guys to do one thing. I want you guys to give me your name. Okay, just your first name, okay? Just give me your first name quickly, and I don't want you guys to take a lot of time in this. Give me your first name and tell me something that you like to do. I don't care what it is, okay? No one's judging you. If you like to play video games, you say I like to play video games. I like to watch movies, I like to watch movies. I like to do X, I don't care what it is. Just don't tell me there's nothing I like to do, because I don't believe that. There's something that all of you guys like to do. Could be to play ball, could be Snapchatting each other, it doesn't matter. I want you guys to say it, all right? So we're gonna start and we're gonna go quickly. We're not gonna take a lot of time in this, okay? Go.
Omar.
Okay, and what do you like to do? Quick, whatever comes to your mind first. Don't filter it, whatever comes to your mind first. Sorry? Okay, video games. All right, next.
My name is Jasmine. I like basketball.
Basketball, playing, watching? Watching. Okay, next.
Ryan, and I like to play soccer.
You like to play soccer, Ryan? What do you like to do? And what's your name? Sorry? Enjoy playing sports. Okay. Play basketball. Okay, which sport? Soccer. Okay. You like to do arts? Let's say, what did you say? Play cards. That's cool. Watch which videos?
Tasty videos.
Tasty
videos. Yeah, they're like into food videos, like cooking videos.
Okay, did I do you? You like to work out? Okay. What do you like to do?
I'm safe and I like swimming.
Swimming. Alright guys, just pay attention.
My name is Ahmed and I like to read.
Read, okay.
I'm Mohammed. I like to play basketball.
Basketball, nice.
I'm Laura, I like to play soccer.
Soccer, okay.
I'm Samin and I like to sleep.
Sleep, okay.
I'm Grace and I like to eat.
Alright.
I'm Nicole and I like to watch sports.
I'm Zan and I like to watch YouTube until school starts.
Alright, cool.
I'm Tawfiq and I like computer programming.
Okay, nice. Programmer.
I'm Rafat and I like to breathe.
Alright. No. Come back. I want a real one. Sorry? I want a real one. And I'm not moving till you give me a real one. Okay, thank you. Alright, next.
I'm Sid Rattle and I like to make beats.
Sorry? Make beats?
Yeah.
Cool, alright. Oh, sorry. Guys, pay attention here.
I'm a teacher, I like to play soccer.
Play soccer, okay?
My name is Raki and I like to make good beats and keep me so warm.
Alright, cool.
My name is Rahat. I like to read books.
Read books? Oh, that's good. I like to read books too, Raj.
My name is Shibli. I like to watch movies.
Watch movies? Alright, cool.
My name is Brian.
Guys, pay attention.
My name is Brian. I like to sit around.
No, real one. Come on, you're not moving till you give me a real one.
I like to play guitar.
Alright, there we go. See? Was that so hard?
My name is Ryan. I like to play badminton.
Badminton, cool.
My name is Ryan, and I like throwing snowballs at people because it's actually hilarious.
What do you do in the summer?
I like
Come on, give me a real one.
I like to play basketball.
Alright.
It's like
Comic book enthusiast, nice.
I'm Ruhi, I like drawing.
Drawing, nice.
I'm Notion, and I like to stargaze.
Stargaze, wow. Telescope?
I'm Nuria, and I like to eat.
Okay.
My name is Oliva, also, and I like to bake.
Bake? Wow, cool.
My name is Ishrat, and I like to knit.
Knit? Nice.
My name is Raymond, and I actually watching movies.
Watching movies? Guys, pay attention.
My name is Humayna, and I like to read books.
Alright.
My name is Salma, I like to read books and watch movies.
Watch movies and books, alright.
My name is Rita. My name is Maggie, and I like to hang out with my friends.
Alright, I'll take that.
My name is Maya, I like to watch shows.
Okay.
My name is Maisha and I also enjoy reading.
Alright, cool.
My name is Mia. I like to lift weights.
Nice.
My name is Hasna. I like going out to cafes, but I can squat more than you. Things like that.
Alright. Oh, you guys already did? Okay. Did I miss you? Yeah, go ahead.
I also like to go and watch Cardi Tubers.
Cardi Tubers, what's up? Cardi Tubers, alright. I like that. Alright, so, go back down. So tell me something, guys. Of all the things that you mentioned, guys, everyone mentioned some things, right? So a lot of you said play basketball, play soccer, watch movies. Let's talk about movies, right? Do you just watch any movie? Is there any filter? Like, do you go, well, maybe, you know, how do you decide which movie you're gonna watch? Okay, YouTube ads. Right. Do any of you go, well, this one looks good. Maybe my favorite actor's in there? Right? Maybe if there's someone in there like, this sucks, are you gonna watch that movie? Most likely not. Right? What about, let's say you like to play soccer, or you like to watch soccer. Somebody here said they like to watch soccer videos. I don't remember who it was. Yeah. Right, there we go, yeah. Do you just watch any player?
I watch all players.
Right, but some random guy, let's say Brother Fahami, uploads a video of him. Are you really good at soccer, Brother Fahami?
I play, but I don't watch a lot of soccer.
Okay, let's say he uploads a video of himself dribbling the ball. Would you watch that? Maybe.
Sure, yeah.
Let's say, hold up. There's the choices between Brother Fahami, myself, Brother Faraz, and Cristiano Ronaldo. Whose are you gonna watch? You can only watch one. You don't have time for more than one.
I watch yours.
Thank you. I like that guy too. He's a smart guy. Most people, other than you, would watch Cristiano Ronaldo. Why Cristiano Ronaldo? Listen. Look, when I ask you guys a question, then we can all talk. But when I'm talking, guys, my voice should be the only one. So when I ask a question, you guys are more than free to answer. Okay? So Cristiano Ronaldo, because he is the best. I personally think Messi's better, but that's besides the point. That's besides the point. But he's one of the best, which is why you want to watch his soccer videos. Because if you like to play soccer, you want to watch his video so you can learn something, right? Versus you might watch my video and learn something wrong, probably, because I'm not Cristiano Ronaldo. I can play soccer, but I'm no Messi. So either way, whatever it is that we like to do, you like to play the guitar, you said, right? Would you watch some random guy playing the guitar, or would you want to watch someone who's an expert playing the guitar?
I mean, I've been watching both.
Okay, which one do you find more beneficial?
The random guys are more funnier.
They're funnier because they screw up, right? It's like me trying to play the guitar. It's not gonna work. In fact, it's gonna be really funny. Everyone's gonna laugh at it. But at the end of the day, if you're serious about playing the guitar, you don't want to watch a guy like me. Because I might be funny, but I'm ultimately doing what? Wasting your time. If you're seriously interested in playing the guitar. The same thing, who was it who said about cooking shows? Yes, it was you. Would you watch someone who, put on a show and they have no idea how to cook? No, I mean, it'd be funny for like a few minutes, but after that, you're like, I'm wasting my time here. Because if you're serious about cooking, you're gonna watch somebody who's a serious cook, or someone who's a chef. You have a favorite chef that you watch? No? You sure? Okay. So, the point being is that we all make decisions, right? There's something that we like to do, and if we're serious about it, now if you're not serious about it, that's a different story. But I'm assuming that if you're doing something, you're serious about it. And when you're serious about something, what do you normally do? Right? So if people who have been actually serious about learning something, tell me, what do you do when you're serious about learning something? And if you've never been serious about something, I don't need a funny answer. I'm looking for serious answers. None of you guys have been ever serious about anything?
I spend time doing that thing.
How do you do that? So you practice, but how do you practice it?
So I guess I said I liked reading, or I guess I spent a ton of time reading, or like
Time reading it, okay.
yeah, or reading different genres.
Right. Do you ever, since you like reading, have you ever looked into speed reading?
Oh, I mean, I know what it is, but no, personally I haven't.
Okay. Have you ever looked into ways of improving your reading?
Yeah, no, I guess I have, or like I guess that's mostly just schooling, like throughout like high school, university.
Cool. Sorry, you had
I think just finding people who are good at whatever it is.
Right.
So finding the best teachers, finding people who are experts in the field, and
Right.
then learning from them.
Right. Exactly. Because no matter who you are, there's always someone better than you. That's just how it goes. Even someone like Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi have coaches, right? Do they go, I don't need you, coach? No, they have coaches who teach them how to play soccer, right? The same thing over here is that if you're serious about something in life, and just take the example of whatever it is that you told me you like to do. Whenever you try and do it, you pay extra attention. So if you like to play soccer, you don't just go out there and play soccer. You probably watch videos, you're like, hey, you watch someone who's good, how am I going to copy them, what am I going to do? Right? You go out there, you try different things, you fall flat on your face, you get back up and you try again and you keep trying until at some point, you're able to do exactly, hopefully, what you were trying to do. That's just how it goes, right? Everyone agree? No? Disagree? Yeah? Same thing with video games. You said video games, right? You ever watch those YouTubers who play video games? Not really? No? But do you ever play with other people who are really good at video games? Yeah. Yeah? Okay, awesome. Anybody watch Aquaman? You know the movie, Aquaman? Come on, okay, you know what? Pretend there's no adults in this room. Alright, and be honest and tell me, who's seen Aquaman? None of you have seen it? I actually don't believe this. I think you guys aren't being honest. Okay, how about Spider-Man? You guys have seen Spider-Man, I'm sure. Yeah. What about Batman? Yeah? What about The Dark Knight? You guys seen The Dark Knight? Yeah? Okay. Alright. So I'm gonna ask you a question. So you guys remember that part in Batman The Dark Knight where I think it's The Dark Knight where he finds out like his parents die and then he disappears for a while. Why does he disappear for a while? What is he doing?
Training.
He's training. Sorry.
Oh, I thought he isolates himself.
He isolates himself and he trains. Okay? And what is he training? What does he do while he's training? What does he do?
Training.
In what?
Fighting.
Okay, what specifically? Martial arts. Right? He's learning martial arts. He secludes himself and he spends a day at it. A month at it. Yeah?
10 years.
10 years. He spends 10 years learning martial arts from whom?
I can't remember. I read the comic book, but I can't remember.
Right? He spends learning martial arts from some of the best people that can teach him martial arts. He's a billionaire, right? So he can hire the best people to teach him martial arts. So after 10 years, when he shows up, does Batman have any special powers? No. He's got no special powers. He's no Spider-Man. Right? He can't just climb. He can't just climb buildings. He has the Batmobile. He has the Batcave. But that's all technology. He himself has no special powers.
No, he does have power.
Which is?
Being rich.
All right. Sure. So he has a lot of money because of his parents. Okay? So he spends 10 years, and when he comes out, he's killing all the bad guys, he's fighting all the bad guys, he's fighting in alleys, he's jumping up and down. So even in fiction, even in something that's completely made up, none of us would believe that Batman trains for a day, and now he can fight all the bad guys. If they showed that, you'd probably laugh at it. Correct? But here's the question. What about Spider-Man? Does he train?
Yes.
Who says yes? Spider-Man trained. Who says no? And the rest of you just aren't sure. What's different about Spider-Man than Batman? He's got special powers. He's got special powers, right? So Spider-Man's got special powers. What about Superman? Does he have special powers? He's got special powers too. But Batman doesn't. Okay? Batman's like us. He's got no special powers. So, unless you've got special powers, and if you're a mutant, I'd like to know. But unless you've got special powers, if you want to get good at something, it requires practice over and over and over again. That's the only way. Have you guys heard of the saying? So many of you guys said you guys play sports, right? There's talent, and then what's the other part of the equation to being successful? It's hard work. You know they say which one is more important? It's hard work. They say success in athletics, if anyone's played athletics at a high level, they say success in athletics is 75% hard work and 25% talent. Meaning hard work will take you much, much farther than talent ever will by itself. Now if you put the two together, of course, that's a dynamite combination. But even if you had zero talent, and you just put in a lot of hard work, that'll take you much farther than the guy who's really, really talented at playing the guitar, but never doesn't care about it. You know, just doesn't really care. Because some people are naturally gifted at different things. Could be at music, could be at drawing. Somebody said drawing. Who was it who said drawing? Somebody said drawing here. I think it was, yes, he said drawing, right? My dad is really gifted at drawing. I don't know how. But I bet you, I don't have a lot of talent in drawing. It didn't really go through to me, it went to my sister. But I bet you for the next 10 years, I just practiced really, really hard. I'd overtake my dad, who's naturally gifted, but you know, he's not really much into drawing anymore. Okay. So, I want to tell you guys a story. Actually, before I tell you guys a story, I want to ask you guys something. Did they tell you what I was going to talk about before I got up here? What did they say? Of stuff. Do's and don'ts of stuff. Sorry? No, not success.
Oh, she told me.
You told her success. Yes. There you go. She's right up there. Excellent. So let me just ask you guys a question. This is a serious question. How do you define excellence? Define excellence for me. Raise your hand. Define excellence for me.
Being good at stuff.
Being good at stuff. Okay. All right. Next.
Straight A's.
Straight A's. Okay. Interesting. Okay. What else? Define excellence. I'm still looking for a good definition. Yeah.
Achieving excellence is when somebody does the best, or the best to their own potential, and then even a little bit more of what they're trying to excel in.
I love that. I actually love that. I didn't think anybody would say that, but that's beautiful. Excellence is being the best at your own capabilities. To the best of your capabilities, okay? Anyone have a different definition of excellence? What comes to your mind? Because don't think too much about it. So when you hear the word excellence, what comes to your mind right away?
90%.
90%, okay. So marks come to your mind. What else? Nothing comes to you guys' mind when you hear the word excellence? Who comes, like, as I said, there's something that's coming to your mind, but you just don't want to say it.
Perfection.
Perfection, okay.
Confidence.
Confidence, all right. That's interesting. Why confidence?
I feel like when you're confident about something you're doing, that's
Yeah.
when you've reached that, that threshold or whatever it is.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. I never thought about it that way.
Hustle.
Hustle? What do you mean by hustle?
Like when you want to get something, you have to go and get it.
Okay, cool. All right. Anyone else want to take a shot at what comes to your mind? There's no right or wrong answer, guys. Sorry? Achievement. Define, what do you mean by that, achievement?
So kind of like you have progressed to like a limit, like your limit.
Right. So you push your own limits. Okay, good? Go ahead, yeah.
Like the goat of every sport.
Oh, he doesn't mean the actual animal, he's referring to the greatest of all time. So, that's good, okay? So the best at every sport, okay? Yeah?
Not being disowned by one's parents.
I love that. Finally, an honest answer. I mean, I know you guys are all honest too, but finally somebody who was like, you know what, I'm just gonna say it. Not being disowned by your parents. Tell me why.
Because if you're not excellent, you're not good enough.
But what do they mean by that excellent?
Like you gotta surpass expectations.
And what are the expectations?
Hundreds. Yeah, like 100%.
Hundreds and doctor. Anybody relate to that? Who doesn't relate? If you don't relate to it, raise your hand. And be honest, if you don't relate to it, you don't relate to it. Okay, one. Who else doesn't relate to that? Two, okay. Three. 3 out of what? 40 here? So 3 out of 40 people do not relate to the idea. So that means 90% of you, 95% of you technically, relate to the idea of excellence is, repeat it again?
Not being disowned by...
Not being disowned by your parents. Thank you. Now we're getting somewhere. You have a hand up? No? Okay. So let me tell you guys a story, okay? We're gonna come back to this question. Who's heard of Abdul Qadir Abdul Salam? Okay. So a little bit of historical lesson. In the late 17th century, the Portuguese overtook which country? Who knows? No, Indonesia. They overtook Indonesia. So the Muslims, so they colonized. So keep in mind, the Muslim lands were all being colonized, and the entire world was being colonized except for Europe. Everyone else was colonized at this point, and the powers were expanding their territory. So Indonesia was just taken over. So what happened was that the Muslims of Indonesia had an uprising against the people who colonized them. So the Portuguese, they captured one of the leaders of this resistance. Okay? His name was Abdul Qadir Abdul Salam. And what they did was, they shipped him off. So this man, he wasn't just the leader of the resistance, he was actually, and you guys know what I mean when I say the resistance, right? Yes? You know, you guys are all thinking World War II when the Nazis took over France, there was an underground resistance. There were people who were trying to push the Nazis out. Same thing over here in Indonesia, there was a resistance of the Muslims to throw the Portuguese out. But the Portuguese captured one of the leaders, and his name was Abdul Qadir. Now, not only was he a leader, he was also one of the prince of the ruling family. So he was a prince. And on top of that, he was an Islamic scholar who had memorized the Quran. So keep in mind, he went from being the prince, next in line to being the king, to being a resistance fighter, to being captured, and now he's a prisoner. So what do they do to him? They ship him off to where? Anyone want to take a guess? Where do they ship him off to?
Brazil.
Close. You guys are all close, but South Africa. He gets shipped off to South Africa. And he gets shipped off to which island? Anyone want to take a guess? The famous island that he got imprisoned at?
Island.
Nope. No. Guys. It's a famous island where a famous South African was imprisoned later on. Yes, it was called the Robben Island. So hundreds of years later, guys listen up, hundreds of years later, Nelson Mandela was imprisoned on the same prison and the same island. But hundreds of years earlier, Abdul Qadir Abdul Salam, this Islamic scholar, resistance fighter, was captured and sent to this prison. Now he's in this prison supposedly for life, right? Because he's a leader, they don't want him to get out. What do you think he did in there? Take a guess, guys. What do you think he did in there for years while he was in prison? That, yeah, he worshipped Allah, of course. He slept, I'm sure. He needed to sleep. He did, yeah.
Planned a way out.
No, he actually didn't plan a way out.
He was probably like practicing something.
He did two things. Okay? He did two things. Number one, from memory, remember he was half of the Quran, so he knew the entire Quran by heart. From memory, he wrote down the entire Quran by hand into a book format. And then the second thing he did was he wrote a book on what? He wrote a book on Islamic law from memory and from his experience and training as an Islamic scholar. So question, he's in prison. Why is he doing this? Who's going to read this? Are there any Muslims in South Africa at that time? No. Why is he writing the Quran and why is he writing this book on Islamic law? Yeah?
To convert the prisoners?
No, not to convert the prisoners.
For those who come after?
Thank you. For those who came after. At that point, if you put yourself in his shoes, he's one of the very few Muslims in South Africa at that time. No one else really is Muslim, maybe except a handful of people, maybe. But they're all in different prisons. What causes Abdul Qadir Abdul Salam to write from memory? And by the way, that handwritten book, the Quran, the handwritten Quran is still in existence in South Africa. And if you go to South Africa, and I'll talk about it, where you can see it. But if you put yourself in his shoes, there's only two things that makes a person do what he did. Because if you look at it logically, there's no hope for him. He's supposed to die in prison. It's a what? It's a lifetime sentence for him. On top of that, it's not like he has lots of Muslims around him where he's thinking to himself, well, I'm going to write this book, a lot of people are going to benefit from it. There's no Muslims around him. Two things keep him going. Number one is what I call the habit of excellence. The habit of ihsan. Right? The Arabic word for excellence is ihsan. Is that when you have a mindset and a habit of excellence, then it doesn't matter whether your parents are going to own you or disown you. It doesn't matter if I'm sitting here and looking at you and how you're behaving, or if somebody's keeping an eye on you. You know what it's like? There's an internal drive to exceed and excel for the sake of God. Because in the prison, he's not going to get any fame out of writing these books. He doesn't know that 350 years down the road, that some people in northern Canada, sitting in a basement of a mosque, are going to talk about him. He has no idea any of this stuff is going to happen. In fact, he doesn't see any of this. He sees no fame during his lifetime. Nobody really knows of him outside of South Africa. But he does this because from a young age, he was raised to be someone who's in pursuit of excellence. That no matter where he is, doesn't matter who's over him, who's overseeing him, none of that matters to him. What matters is that he has an internal barometer. Is that when he does something, no matter where he is, he's going to do it, and he's going to take advantage of his time to the best of his ability. And that's why I loved your answer. That's why I loved your answer, is that you do something to the best of your ability. Because can you, if your parents wanted you to, you said you like to, what was it? You like going to cafes, and what was the other thing? And restaurants and stuff like that, right? Let's say your parents wanted you to be an astronaut. Can you do it? Maybe you can. Maybe. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Let's be honest. I'd like to sit here and tell you you can be Leo Messi if you practice hard enough. But guess what? It's likely not going to happen. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Maybe you are the next Leo Messi. Maybe you are the next Colonel Hatfield. You guys know Colonel Hatfield, right? Everyone knows Colonel Hatfield. Yeah, the Canadian commander of the ISS. Not ISIS, ISS. I want to tell you, whether if you try hard enough, you can be this. But really, realistically, the best that we can do is to the best of our ability. Okay? I want to tell you guys another story. Oh, so actually, let me finish up the story on Abdul Qadi Abdul Salam. So he writes these 2 books, okay? And after being in prison for 15 years, the British take over. The Portuguese are kicked out, and who takes over? The British take over. So when the British take over, they're more lenient than the Portuguese. They're still slave drivers, don't get me wrong. So don't think like well of them. They're still colonizers and still slave drivers, but they're better than the Portuguese, who are absolutely the worst. So because they're lenient and they're more appreciate Islam a bit more, they actually let Abdul Qadi Abdul Salam, they release him. They say he's had very excellent behavior and they release him. You know what's the first thing that he does after being released? Does he try and swim his way back to Indonesia? He actually doesn't. As soon as he's released, he realizes that there's more Muslims that have been brought here as prisoners. He begins to lobby for their release also. And the second thing he does, he begins to lobby to build a mosque. And guess what? In 5 years, he gets permission from the British to build the first mosque in South Africa. The mosque to this day stands. And then along with that mosque, he builds the first Islamic school, which is like a madrasa. And guess what they teach? So at that time, they don't have Qurans everywhere. Guess which 2 books they use to teach the Muslims? The 2 books that he wrote in prison. Did he plan that? Was there some master plan that he was sitting in prison going, well, I'm going to write these books first, and then sooner or later the British are going to take over, and they're going to release me, and then I'm going to go lobby them for a mosque and a madrasa, and lobby them to release the Muslims, and then we're going to get together and have one big Muslim community. No. No, he doesn't. Well, all that he knows is that in that moment, when he's sitting in prison, and he can't do anything else, that the only thing that he can do, he's going to write the Quran. Because that's the only thing he's able to do. So what he does is he writes it to the best of his ability, and they say that when he was released and his Quran was being used, they found literally very few errors in it. Very, very few errors in it. Meaning that he did that with excellence. He didn't be like, well, no one really here knows the Quran. I'm the only one. I can write whatever I want. Who really cares? No. He wrote it down because he really cared about it. And by the way, how do you think he got to know the Quran so well that when he wrote it from memory, there were very few errors? He practiced for years and years and years and years, to the point that when he was by himself in a prison, he was able to do it like it was no issue at all. Okay? So, let's go back to that point of yours, disowning. The best that you can do, to your capability, that is excellence for you. I'm not going to stand here and tell you, excellence is when you become a doctor. And if you haven't become a doctor, you haven't received excellence. That's not excellence. Excellence is you push your own abilities and you push your own limits. And excellence is a mindset. Meaning that if I were to say, or if you were to assign to, hey, I want you to clean the house, then you do it with excellence. Excellence is doing the best thing. Doing it to the best of your ability, even if you know the reward is not there. So for example, a lot of people will be like, well, I study really hard and I'm excellent in studies. That's good. And that's great, you should be. Or you should try your best. But at the end of the day, those who's in university, raise your hand. Okay. What's your goal in university? It's okay, be honest. Be honest. It's okay, you can say it. What do you want to become in university? It's okay, if you want to be a doctor, just say it. Yeah.
I think I want to become a professor.
Professor? Okay. Well, I mean, you must have something in mind you're studying. Accounting. Okay, mashallah.
I'm not sure.
Not sure, okay. Who had their hand up? Now nobody wants to admit what they want to be. Go ahead.
Software engineer.
Okay, civil engineer, mashallah. Software engineer, sorry. Anyone else? Well, you guys are in university. So, right now for those of you who know what you're doing, there's a pot of gold at the end, right? I'm going to study hard, I'm going to graduate with X, Y degrees, and eventually that's going to lead to a job. What if I told you there was no job at the end? Let's just say, what if I told you you're just studying for the sake of studying? You're like, whoa, that's a foreign concept. Who's studying for the sake of studying, right? But did you know people actually used to study for the sake of study? That even though there wasn't a pot of gold at the end, people used to study. You know, the Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said something really beautiful. I'm going to share this with you guys. He said, "Inna al-insana, inna Allah kataba al-ihsana ala kulli shay." He said, Allah has prescribed excellence in everything that you do. Right? Allah has prescribed that whatever it is that you're doing, you do it to the best of your ability. Now when I say that, all of a sudden everyone's like, yeah, that's right, I'm going to study hard and become XYZ and make lots of money and my parents are not going to disown me. It's okay, you know, we all admitted earlier on that's the first thought that comes to my mind. But you know what's interesting? Is that the Prophet continued after this. Listen to what he says. He says, فَإِذَا قَتَلْتُمْ فَأَحْسِنُوا الْقَتْلَ وَإِذَا ذَبَحْتُمْ فَأَحْسِنُوا الذِّبَحَ. He said, so if you kill an animal, kill it well. And if you slaughter it, then slaughter it well. And then he said, let each of you sharpen his blade and let him spare the suffering to the animal that he slaughters. So question, why is the Prophet of Allah, do you guys find it odd that he's talking about doing things with excellence, and then what does he mention? He mentions killing. Not just killing, but killing what? Animals. Right? Killing animals, something that's not even a human, like that's not a human being, something that animal we might not even think twice about. So why do you guys think he mentioned slaughtering an animal as an example? He could have mentioned anything. He could have been like, the Prophet of Allah could have said, so when you do trade, do lots of good trade and make lots of money. But he mentioned slaughtering an animal. Why? Rahat?
Do something which causes others less harm or no harm.
Okay. Decent answer, good answer. I want to hear more. Yeah?
Animals aren't like witnessing you do it. I guess you're kind of alone when you do that. Or like alone physically.
Okay, so it's, okay, that's good too. Okay, what else? Yeah?
They're kind of like looked over.
Here, sorry?
People like look over them.
Okay, expand on that. What do you mean? Look over them.
Like people like don't really care that much.
Thank you. Because even now, have you guys seen those videos where, I mean, I hope you had, I hope this wasn't true, but have you seen those videos where they'll take like a sneak a camera into a slaughter shop or a slaughter warehouse, and they'll have these chickens. And what they'll do is these chickens are being treated really badly. Because, you know, they're just chickens, nobody cares. So they'll pick up these chickens and they'll like hit them on the ground and they'll kick them. And these chickens are in such bad shape they can barely walk. And this is in 2018 we're talking about. That these chickens and beef and cows and goats are being treated really badly. Now imagine 1400 years ago, do you think anybody cared about animals? Do you think really even now, with all the ethics that we have, with all the rules and regulations that we have, people still treat animals as badly as they can. Right? Which is why one of the reasons is when you're eating something, make sure that it's been treated well. But do you think 1400 years ago, anybody really cared when they were going to slaughter an animal? No. People didn't care. And that's exactly why the Prophet mentioned something that nobody cares about. Because he's saying that if something that you don't care about at all, which is slaughtering an animal, if you're going to do it, you do it with excellence. Meaning that you make sure that it dies right away. You make sure that the knife blade is sharp. Because if it's blunt, what's going to happen? You're going to have to do it several times. The animal's going to be in pain. But if the knife is sharp, it's going to be one cut and his pain is gone. Right? So the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's telling us that for even something that most people don't care about, slaughtering an animal, but if you're going to do it, you'd make sure you do it to the best of your ability, to the best way that you can. Then imagine anything more than that. Be it your careers, be it your relationship with your parents, be it, you name it. Playing soccer, learning to play the guitar, programming, reading books, learning how to cook, playing different sports. Everything is higher than that in the things that we care about. So, Islamically, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is telling us is that excellence or doing your best is a mindset. And if it's not a mindset, then guess what's going to happen? You're going to try your best in things that you see the pot of gold at the end. And when that pot of gold is missing, you're back to, well, it's good enough. It's good enough. There's a saying, and I love this saying. I read this in a business book. It said the enemy of great is good enough. Meaning that as soon as you get a mindset of, well, this is good enough, you're never going to improve after that. Because you're like, this is good enough. Well, I got a 75, it's good enough. I got a 95, it's good enough. A Muslim is constantly pushing his boundaries or pushing her boundaries. And that's why I love that answer. Is that excellence is not related to someone external. Right? Because it goes back to, we all have different capabilities. And we don't know where the success is going to come from. Someone who looked at Abdul Qadi Abdul Salam sitting in prison and writing a book would say what? He's a failure. The guy sitting in prison writing a book that no one's going to read. At that moment, most people would have said he's a failure. Who cares? He's not going anywhere in life. And guess who we're talking about 350 years later? The same man who at that time would be considered a failure. And now we're talking about him, and inshallah we'll continue to talking about him until the day of judgment. And imagine the rewards that he's getting. You know why? Because to him, it didn't matter there was a pot of gold at the end or not. To him, what mattered was he was doing the right thing at that moment, and he was doing it to the best of his ability. And then whatever happened after that, happened after that. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided him to a way that we're going to remember him till the end of time. Imagine that. Imagine being remembered till the end of time. You know, in 100 years, no one's going to remember Cristiano Ronaldo. No one's going to remember him. In 100 years, most people aren't going to talk about Messi. He'll be just something that happened 100 years ago. And these guys were excellent at what they do, don't they? They were, right? So that's the other thing, is your intention determines how last your excellence lasts. So what do I mean by that? Ronaldo and Messi, are they really good at soccer for what reason? They're coaches, but what's the reason? They can make a lot of money. They get paid a lot of money. They get paid a lot of money to play soccer and be good at it. Okay? But who's going to remember them in 100 years? Do you remember the top soccer player from 50 years ago? Who was the top soccer player from 50 years ago?
Pele.
It wasn't Pele. No, Maradona wasn't even alive at that time. See, no one remembers it. Even I don't know who the top player was. Who was the top NBA player from 60 years ago? No, he wasn't even alive at that time. You see what I mean? Nobody remembers the guy from 60 years ago. Sorry? No, none of them. They were all from the 80s and the 70s. The point is, even I don't know who the top player from NBA was from 60 years ago. No, you don't know it. Put down your hand. What differentiates these people from the people like Abdul Qadi Abdul Salam, or from the people, or from the other people who we remember now? You know what's the difference? Is that the people who we remember now did it for the sake of God. Meaning they were excelling something and their intention was that I'm going to use it to please God. And then God made sure that they remembered. So not only did they excel at what they did, but God made sure that their name is remembered for hundreds of years after they died. And that's the difference between a Muslim who excels and somebody else who excels with a pot of gold at the end. I'm going to tell you guys one more story. I'm going to end off on this because I'm out of time. I'm pretty sure. How much time do I have? I think I'm out of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last story. I'm going to tell you the story of a husband and a wife. Okay? And this story is mentioned in the Quran. The husband and the wife were really, really pious. Okay? But they had no children. In fact, the husband used to be the imam of his people. He used to be the leader, even on a religious level of the people. And even the wife was really, really pious, but they had no children. And they got to a certain age where they couldn't have any more children. You know, when you get to the age of 70 and 80, this is the days before the IVF, in vitro fertilization, you're not going to have kids. Nobody has kids at the ages of 70 and 80. Even now, it'd be extremely, extremely difficult, let alone thousands of years ago. So they got to an age where, realistically, they were not going to have any children. But one day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lets them know that you are going to have a child. And they're ecstatic. They're extremely happy about it. They're really, really happy about it. But then tragedy strikes. The husband passes away before the child is born. Okay? Now the wife, she's in grief at the husband passing away. But she's also very hopeful about the child that's coming. So she makes a dua to Allah, and she makes a promise to Allah